April 4th, 1986. The maiden voyage into space by the Challenger. April 4th, 1973. Official dedication of the World Trade Center. April 4th, 1968. Martin Luther King is assassinated. April 4th, 1925. In Germany, the founding of the SS under Adolf.
Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And we have a very, very special guest, one of our favorites, joining us all the way from Los Angeles. Rachel Weeks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for having me back, guys.
Thank you for being here. We are taking the opportunity offered to us by self-isolation to reach out to a few people who we've loved having on but have since moved away. So we're glad you can be here.
I'm psyched. I love this. It's like now that nobody's local, everybody is.
Yeah, it's... Yeah, it's a way bigger pool of people. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to message them a few days ago.
Yeah, it's wild to think about what this would be like if it happened like 25 years ago even.
Yeah.
Where like you just didn't have internet or technology and you couldn't go to Blockbuster or whatever the fuck.
It would be a nightmare. I feel like Blockbuster would get raided. Like there would be a lot more theft and like craziness involved. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. They would not have survived. They didn't survive
Eventually
anyway.
They died anyway, yeah.
Yes.
As we all must.
Yeah. Just
One day
Neopets crashing over and over again.
Oh no, the Neopets. Not even the on-brand Tamagotchi.
It's only like 15 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
But
So if you're a new listener to this show, the premise is every other week, we discuss a person or event from history. One person gives the sort of official government-sanctioned account of that person or event. And another person creates an alternate version that is as crazy, batshit, bananas, bonkers as that person wants it to be or doesn't want it to be. If they want to be very dry, that's also allowed.
I
don't think we've
history
had that.
more boring.
Yeah, that is technically not forbidden. You could just change their life so they didn't do anything interesting ever.
It's nothing in the rule book that says that.
Last time we discussed the central figure of Hidden Figures, whose name momentarily escapes me. Brian, what was her name again?
Dorothy Vaughan.
Dorothy Vaughan, yes. Did we get a ruling on what won in the end?
We did, and it is very close. But the alternate history has won out. Sorry, I was just pulling up the poll now because I forgot to.
Yeah,
because it's like 1:30 in the afternoon. Not a
the
time we
alternate
typically
history,
do this.
which I wrote, which involved Dorothy Vaughan creating an invisibility suit, being the basis for James Bond, and eventually becoming Bilbo Baggins and retiring on the moon. That is the winner. Yeah.
Perfect.
And we are continuing our episodes on the space race, on rocket science this week. I didn't say the thing. Usually I say whatever wins the vote becomes the actual history of this brilliant blue spinning luminescent marble we call the Earth going forward.
Canon.
Yeah, it is historically canon. All history books are rewritten. Brian, what are we covering this week?
This week we are talking about Sputnik.
Right, Sputnik. I always forget on the weeks where I don't have to write or research anything. Because I'm like, I don't have to know what we're talking about beforehand. I just have to show up this time.
Perfect. I know you probably weren't. I picture you saying that while just ripping from a giant skull bong.
Well, you can see me, so I was clearly not. But
Yes.
Had I had a skull bong, perhaps so. Maybe I'll get one of those Dan Aykroyd vodka bottles and make it into a skull bong. somehow.
Perfect. Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, Rachel, you will be doing the actual history.
Uh-huh.
And I've got some kind of alternate ready to go, just trying to play down expectations.
Oh, no. You made Sputnik more boring?
Well, that's the thing, because, like, usually, like, in picking a topic, it's much easier to go with, like, a person than just, like, a thing that happened. But there'll be a couple of these in here, so...
It's cool if, like, Sputnik was secretly a superhero who went to go retire on the moon. Like, we can...
That is not that far off, but whenever you're ready, take it away. We did it.
All right. On October 4th, 1957, the Soviets kicked off the space race with the famous Sputnik. In true Russian style, Sputnik got its name from the Russian word for satellite. Satellite 1, they called it. It's very romantic. We're launching the first artificial Earth satellite into space. We're breaking ground and the atmosphere for the first time. What should we call her? Our crowning achievement, our life's work. I don't know. It's a satellite. Call it a fucking satellite.
Sorry.
No.
One of the things I read said that, like, in other contexts, the word Sputnik also means, like, spouse.
Yeah.
Or, like, traveling partner or whatever.
It's more likely to me that they were just like, I don't know, it's a satellite.
Yeah.
So, by that logic, does Laika just mean dog or dog that we're about to kill?
I hope so. I couldn't find a translation on Laika, but Sputnik orbited for just 3 weeks before its battery died. You can tell nobody was playing Pokemon Go up there, or it wouldn't have made it a day. But pretty good joke.
That's the first one to get to that gym up there in, like, Earth orbit. So
pretty big. Yeah, you had a Pokemon up there forever. I actually work near the crash site for where Paul Walker died. Oh. That was, like, where my office is, and it is a Pokemon Go gym. That's just a real fact. It has nothing to do with Sputnik, but yikes.
What city of angels.
Oh my god. It's crazy.
Does Pokemon Go gyms? I've never played a Pokemon Go gym. Do they have, like, proper gym leaders that are constantly at the gym location?
No, you, like, leave stuff there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've been leaving haunters.
I was hoping that Paul Walker was the gym leader.
Oh my god, that would be so good.
I don't know what type. I guess he would be, like, car type.
Yeah.
He was in Tammy and the T-Rex. Maybe he could pick all the dinosaur type Pokemon.
What is Tammy the T-Rex?
Tammy and the T-Rex is a movie from the 90s starring Denise Richards and Paul Walker, in which a mad scientist puts Paul Walker, who has a crush on Denise Richards' brain, into a giant robotic T-Rex.
He has a crush on a robot T-Rex? The 90s were a great time.
Well, he had a crush on Denise Richards,
right?
And she had a crush on him.
Who becomes a robot?
Likes him. She still likes him once he's a T-Rex.
Oh, he's a T-Rex.
Yeah, his brain is... He's murdered, essentially, and his brain is put into a T-Rex.
So it's like a RoboCop situation.
And the movie ends with his brain in a jar in Denise Richards' house, and she does a striptease for him, and static sparks shoot out of the brain jar, and it's clear that he's coming from watching her...
Oh my god!
From watching her striptease.
Is this on Shudder right now?
It is on Shudder right now. Yes.
I assume this is your alternate history for Sputnik.
It is. Now.
If you want to watch Tammy and the T-Rex, the gore edit, you can sign into Shudder with the code SHUTIN, which will give you 30 free days, and then you can cancel it. But Tammy and the T-Rex is on there.
Oh my god! Perfect. I thought you guys had a Shudder sponsorship. I was like, oh hell yeah!
That'd be I wish. Fantastic.
Oh god! All right. So it was up in space for 3 weeks, And in just 3 weeks, it completed 1,440 complete orbits of the, oh my gosh, the notifications. Complete orbits of the Earth and one fiery re-entrance of the Earth's atmosphere. The satellite provides scientists with a wave of invaluable information, and it traveled nearly 43 million miles, which is pretty wild. The construction of the satellite began, as all great scientific pursuits do, as the direct result of an international pissing contest. On December 17th, 1954, Chief Soviet rocket scientist Sergei Korolev proposed a development plan to his Minister of Defense. The first page famously said, "If you want rockets, let me throw this big metal birdie into space."
And also, like, we're spending the next several episodes covering the space race, but just to make it clear, that's all this whole thing was.
Oh, yeah, that was it. It was just like Khrushchev and Eisenhower laying it out and measuring. Like, it's ridiculous. Korolev's plan was ignored until about 6 months later. They didn't really do anything with it until the United States publicly announced that they too had a big metal birdie that they would like to study. It took only 4 days for the Soviets then to announce their launch and many more to actually get that launch approved. In 1956, the Soviet government approved work on an Earth-orbiting satellite tentatively named Object D. So serious.
Wow.
They literally were like, let's launch a D into space.
Yeah, space wants the D, is what they said.
Space wants the D. I love that their first draft was Object D, and then like a year later, and like thousands of dollars and calculations and study, and they were like, you know what, Satellite 1 is fine.
Satellite. Let's just go with one of the great literary cultures of the world.
It truly does. I mean, like, you're calling it a birdie, but you're right. It like truly looks like a shuttlecock, basically.
Right, it looks like a shuttlecock.
The netting around it.
Yeah, it's like it's a big sphere with like 4 antennae coming off the side, and that's it.
If you just draped like some shit around the 4 legs, it would fully be a shuttlecock.
It looks like a birdie.
Mm-hmm.
So Object D was designed to study the density of the atmosphere and its composition, the solar wind, magnetic fields, and cosmic ray. That all takes a lot of equipment to study. And thus Object D was insanely heavy. It was huge. The production of Object D proved too hefty for the Soviets' first launch. Can't expect them to launch a D that big on their Virgin run. Yep. Sorry, I wrote it.
I mean, we were all working towards a similar goal.
You can't start that big. You got to start small. So they made this huge satellite trying to make like a good one, and they're like, shit, we're gonna lose this race because we're trying to make a good one. So
I think a lot of people have this misconception that the most attractive thing, like that, space wants just the biggest satellite you could possibly give it. But
the atmosphere is a size queen.
In reality, I think a lot of space just wants a moderately sized satellite that would be comfortable for everyone involved.
It's easy to launch into space.
Yeah.
You know, nobody has to be afraid.
Yeah.
Sort of a generous satellite also.
Right.
A thoughtful satellite. You don't want, you know.
You want a satellite that eats ass is basically what.
Yeah,
that's all we're looking for.
But you know, like all these countries are looking for who has the biggest satellite. Sometimes the biggest satellite is not. You know, there is a limit on how big a satellite can be before it's just not comfortable.
Right. Until you literally can't get a rocket big enough to launch it.
Right. Exactly.
So, fearing the United States would get their D into atmosphere first. The design of Object D was abandoned for a smaller one, lighter, more gentle. They threw out the heavy scientific equipment and they replaced it with a simple radio transmitter. They called it Object PS. I don't know. Object PS as they go. It was only 220 pounds, so they really cut it down. Really slimmed down some. some weight off of it. While 220 pounds was light compared to the D, object PS still needed to be hurled at great force to break through the Earth's atmosphere. So research on a giant slingshot began. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. They made a rocket.
That's far more boring than the slingshot option.
I know. Well, they adapted a rocket. So the rocket was initially designed as an intercontinental ballistic missile. The rocket was designed to blow up countries, but that particular rocket kept blowing up when it left the dang atmosphere. A trait that is inconvenient for warfare, but just fine for launching satellites. So the R-7 rocket was discharged from its military service and sent back to Sergei Korolev for scientific purposes. Much like a German Shepherd that didn't make it in the police academy becomes a house pet, who has undeniably seen some shit.
For some reason, I did not make the connection. I thought you were talking about the Police Academy movies.
Oh, no. Yeah. The dog police academy. That's the same, right?
When I was a teenager, the house next door, a cop lived in it, and he had a police dog that lived in the house.
Yeah.
And eventually, I am confident in saying that the dog only sniffed for bombs and not drugs. But I was unsure for a time.
Right, yeah. You had to keep all your bombs in a carefully sealed container.
Exactly. So, yeah. I never touched. I'm straight edge, but I make a lot of bombs.
That good boy rocket did his job, however, and the Sputnik rocket was launched October 4th, 1957. 20 seconds after an admittedly bumpy liftoff, scientists could hear the faint beep, beep, beep of the first satellite in space. The American government, famous for losing well, were unimpressed, saying it did not come as a surprise. It didn't come as a surprise mostly because they had spy planes flying over the Soviet Union at all times. It did not come. The world rang in the space age and cheered the progress of mankind. Sputnik 1 seemed to do what the Soviets had intended, pronouncing to the world that the USSR was not fucking around. The American people were baffled to be so suddenly and loudly put in second place behind communist USSR of all nations. President Eisenhower, when asked about the security concerns regarding the Soviet satellite, said, meh. I'm kidding. He said, now, so far as the satellite itself is concerned, that does not raise my apprehensions, not one iota. He said it was mostly like a scientific pursuit. He wasn't worried about it as a military grade situation.
Yeah. Which, I mean, fair. He was correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he said publicly.
It was barely a scientific pursuit.
Right. They launched a radio into space. They didn't even get it was too heavy to do anything else. So he wasn't too worried about it from a military grade perspective. He's like, did you see the rocket? It blew up as soon as it hit the atmosphere. He did encourage the launch of American Project Vanguard, which they called a civilian satellite program. Shockingly, it failed miserably in great public fashion. Their first launch failed on television screens all across the United States. It was very clear that the United States was behind. I think that's so funny that he's like, let the people try, get him a stomp rocket. I think that's so funny.
We don't have NASA yet, so let's try Craig.
Yeah,
maybe Craig can do it.
They're like, can any of you guys handle this? Do you mind? We're busy. But Project Vanguard did not necessarily work out. And the United States was proved that they were even further behind when on November 3rd, 1957, Sputnik 2, also creative, was launched. The second USSR satellite, containing the first dog in space. The chosen dog was a common stray named Laika, not at all a trained astronaut that they claimed her to be.
I'm amazed they even got away with that one.
They just ripped a dog off the streets and strapped her in a suit, took some pictures, and shot her into space, which is some sociopathic shit. Laika was heralded as a hero. She was the first animal in space. USSR scientists claimed that she died on day 6 of the orbit after she inevitably ran out of oxygen. They did not have the science to re-enter the atmosphere. She was never coming back alive. It was never, but they were like, no, she died softly when she suffocated. In truth, Laika died almost immediately from overheating. Almost immediately. The Soviets did not release that particular nugget of information until 2002. About 50 years. They were like, no, she did it. She spent 6 heavenly days in space.
She landed on a nice farm upstate.
Yeah.
Sputnik, there was no goal or real scientific achievement to doing this. They just...
Nope. They needed a headline.
Yeah. They wanted to be like, we could do this and you can't. And it didn't matter.
Well, they had all this research that they've been doing for Object D, which is ironically the most scientific of all the satellites released at the beginning. But they were worried that the United States would get their satellite out between the first and the second satellite. So they basically just retooled Sputnik 1 and strapped a dog to it. That was like the whole process, which is pretty nightmarish. Yeah. But despite President Eisenhower's initial laissez-faire attitude, Sputnik wreaked havoc upon the Americans' public view of their country. Suddenly, the state's global dominance felt flimsy and false. A technological gap between the states and the Soviets surely meant devastation. In reality, the gap between the United States technology and the Soviets technology was only about 20%, and that amounted mostly to like rocket thrust. Like it had nothing to do with the actual tools in space. They just couldn't make a gun quite strong enough to get it up there.
As it were.
Which is what a rocket is, right? It's just a gun.
Yeah.
It's just a big gun. I know science.
It's a gun. Basically, it's a rocket is a gun pointed at the sky. It's the original Hamilton the musical.
So yeah, the people of the United States were absolutely losing their minds. They were like, how could the Russians be ahead of us? We're going to die in a fiery explosion. When in reality, the biggest thing is like the Soviet Union maybe could have thrown a big ping pong ball at us.
To be fair, that's been our vibe for most of our history.
Yeah, freak out too soon?
No, not so. Recently, we freaked out too late.
Too late. No freak on our current president. He's got all chill somehow.
That's the first time I've ever heard anyone describe him that way.
Well, when it comes to the important shit, he wasn't really an itchy trigger finger when it comes to the mental or the physical health of his people. Okay. But because of the people's reaction to the Soviet launch of Sputnik, the Eisenhower started to respond. So it wasn't long before the United States launched the Advanced Research Projects Agency and NASA. They increased government spending on scientific research and education. And eventually in 1960, the presidential campaign was completely dominated by the discussion of closing the missile gap, pursuing the threat of the Soviets with resourcefulness and vigor. But on January 31st, 1958, the United States did launch their first satellite into orbit, dubbed Explorer 1, or as it was better known as Suck a Big Dick Commies, the satellite.
Yeah, that was spray painted on the side by Kennedy himself.
Yeah. With a skull on one side. And that's essentially like from Sputnik to Explorer, the launch of the space race.
Yeah.
Perfect. Rachel, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
So I guess Brian has the alternate this week because I definitely don't.
I do. Sorry, the cat is looking like she's going to make her move.
I have been dodging the cat this whole time. I had 2 computer screens she couldn't sleep on.
I'm in the back office. The cat is in the main apartment. I am segregated from the cat.
So yeah, the official story is that Sputnik, burned up on re-entry in January of 1958. What actually happened is that there was still like large chunks of it, and one of them hit a young PhD candidate by the name of Vincent Diesel in the head just as he was...
Speaking of Paul Walker.
Yeah, I noticed that earlier. Just as he was getting in his transporter that he just invented. So there was some...
Is this a teleporter? Is this a car? Is it just
more like a teleporter situation?
It's a wagon. It's more. It's mostly a wagon.
It's a pony.
It could be described as a mule.
Transporter's a very vague term. Technically, my legs are transporters.
Mm-hmm. Like an office wheelie chair? Was it an office chair?
Yeah.
But a car would have been very... I feel like for some reason Vincent Diesel getting into a sports car seems plausible to me. So.
True. I did forget about Fast and the Furious, honestly, when I was writing this.
You were talking about Vin Diesel, and you forgot about Fast and the Furious.
Well, you'll see. You'll see.
This is the Chronicles of Riddick based.
I'm a Riddick fan myself. Yeah. Pitch Black, the other one,
Chronicles of Riddick, which I just mentioned.
The movie where on set he taught Judi Dench how to play D&D.
I don't know what movie that was, but I think that's a true story. Yes.
No, that's Chronicles of Riddick.
Oh, that is Chronicles of Riddick.
Okay. So the resulting mix of Sputnik shrapnel and Vincent Diesel produced from one transporter a sort of combination metal man, and in the other transporter just a weird fleshy ball with antenna.
Okay, so it's going to be Iron Giant Groot, maybe?
We sort of forget about the flesh ball. The resulting explosion...
How do you forget about a giant fleshy ball?
I mean, the ball does have adventures of its own.
Yeah, it goes up against Jason Statham and Idris Elba.
Of course, in Hobbs and Ball.
That's
Helen
why
Mirren.
His name got shortened to Vin Diesel and just becomes the Vin we know him as today.
Yeah.
Vin is, of course, 75 years old.
Yep. The resulting explosion blew the Metal Man to the small town of Rockwell, Maine, where he landed in the scrap heap owned by Harry Connick Jr., who's an actor and vampire. That's why he's still with us today. And he was found by, at the time, a young child, Eli Marenthal, which he stayed the same age because of Monkey's Paw Wish gone wrong. I'm trying to come up with reasons why all these people stayed the same age now because I forgot about the time difference. Eli Marenthal, by the way, the son of Jennifer Aniston, who there were a bunch of it was like the end of The Prestige. There were a bunch of Jennifer Anistons. They're all there now, doing a small theater production of Death of a Salesman.
To be fair to your timeline problems, in the film The Iron Giant, Sputnik is in the air. It's still orbiting Earth during the time frame of that film and has not re-entered the atmosphere yet.
Well, that's just a film, though. That's
just a movie.
Yeah.
Right. That's not real life.
Right.
Took some liberties with the story. Man, the rest of this is literally just the plot of The Iron Giant, I realize, with some adaptations.
Superman, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Eli befriends the half-man,
We're all going to cry on
creation.
the podcast.
They read comic books, teaches them how to play games. They play hide and seek. They see a deer killed. They're pursued by Christopher McDonald and the dad from Frasier, who are both Highlanders. That was Jen, who has not seen The Iron Giant, so this is all fresh to her.
I mean, this is not an accurate summation of The Iron Giant in many ways. Also, watch The Iron Giant. It's a good movie. Tell Jen to watch The Iron Giant. Listener,
I kind of want to watch it tonight.
Listener, if you have not seen The Iron Giant, turn off this podcast and watch
Spoiler
it and
alert.
come back.
Spoiler alert. The movie that makes me cry more than any other. Yeah. the movie that affected me so much, I even cried writing this a little bit.
Wow. The first tear-stained alternate history. No, not the first. Brian cries during every alternate history he writes.
Not going to lie, am a pushover. So, yeah, I mean, you know how it goes. The Vin Diesel robot gets a toy gun pointed at him, which activates its weapon system, which is not from the Sputnik part, but from the Vin Diesel part. He leaves thinking himself a threat. He's pursued by Harry Connick Jr. and Eli. He's found. There's a whole discussion about how you're not a weapon. You are who you choose to be. Military attack. He thinks Eli's dead. Not dead. Eli Marienthal would later go on to star in American Pie 2.
Okay.
Not star. He played Stifler's brother.
Wait, the kid from the Iron Giant was Stifler's brother in American Pie 2?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just trying to find something more current.
He's had quite a career.
Not. Yeah. Iron Giant and Stifler's brother.
One of the most touching roles in recent film history.
Stifler's second most famous relative.
The amount of recall I was not expecting you to have for the American Pie series. So Vin Dieselbot goes on a rampage. He's calmed when Eli and Harry Connick Jr. appear. But then a rogue Christopher McDonald orders a nuclear missile strike. Eli explains to Vin Diesel that the town is going to die. And Vin Dieselbot sacrifices himself to save the town, remembering Eli's words that you are who you choose to be. Eli keeps a screw from the resulting explosion and sees it moving and remembers the Vin Diesel's ability to reassemble himself.
Listener, if you have not seen The Iron Giant, I hope you paused when I told you to pause and watch that movie.
Please.
Before listening to the Wikipedia plot summary of the film The Iron Giant on this. Yeah.
I resent the implication that I don't remember that much of The Iron Giant.
Sure, Hogarth Hughes watches 50s horror movies, and then the hand comes in and has to hide from Jennifer Aniston. We all remember.
Vin Diesel reassembles himself, and his first words upon
family?
Wait, what?
I'm hoping his first word is family.
Damn it, I should have thought of that. His first words upon finishing his reconstruction are, I have a great idea for a script.
Okay.
And that movie, we all know it today. That's right. Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage. So there we go. There's what I came up with. And what Brad Bird also probably came up with.
I mean, Brad Bird more so than you.
Yeah, at this point. Sorry, I was also fighting off one of the cats.
That makes it an even more epic story. While it's being told.
Yep.
Battling the will of a cat.
She is now fighting one of the other cats for no reason.
So now is the point in our podcast where we say that if you would like to leave a review of this podcast, you're at home, you're not doing shit, you're staring out your window, sucking your thumb, sitting on your ass. You're not doing anything. Scared.
And never the other way around.
Do you want a momentary respite from the constant anxiety that coronavirus is giving you? Write a review on iTunes. For 30 seconds, you won't think about the coronavirus. Write a review, a 5-star review of this podcast saying, I ain't thinking about the coronavirus, and that's the whole review. Go do that.
Perfect.
Because it helps us a lot. We also have a Patreon, but, if you do that, that's even more appreciated. The review's free, though, and you ain't doing anything anyway.
Yeah. You can also ask us a question or leave us a comment at revisionistpodcast.com or find us on Twitter or Instagram. Just search Revisionist Podcast. Rachel, before we move on, you host a very fun podcast for people who are into Magic the Gathering.
I do. I am a co-host on the podcast, The Commander Sphere. It's me and another great comedian, Dan Sheehan. And we talk about a lot of the new spoilers coming out is our next episode, but we just talk about magic in a funny way. If you don't know anything about Magic the Gathering, not a great podcast for you. Not a good option. This one's a better option.
I like that you're upfront about the limitations of,
It's great. It's a lot of fun. If you like Magic, you'll have a great time. If you don't, you'll be confused.
Yeah.
You're also involved with Sarah's Angels, right?
Yes. So I do it's going to be twice monthly now stream with a group of 3 other women, and we just stream Magic and we talk and make jokes and with build new decks and that kind of stuff. Again, if you've never played Magic, perhaps not your content, but it's good content, especially if you play Commander.
And you know what? You know what you're doing right now, listener? You're sitting at home, sucking your thumbs, sitting on your ass. Buy a Magic the Gathering.
Come on, Magic Arena. It's a great way to learn.
And then you can listen to the podcast. You can do Sarah's Agent. You can do all of it.
That's what we ask. Is very high overhead. It's not just a YouTube review or an iTunes review for us. You have to learn a very complicated game in order to just walk through the door. It's great. It's been a lot of fun.
I tried playing Magic the Gathering when I was like 11, and I was like, I don't get this, and never tried again.
Well, I'm sure you haven't grown since then.
Sure.
I mean, in many ways, I have not.
You're supposed to get that first hit with the Pokemon card game that came out when I was about 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And then you move on from there to the more complicated stuff.
And I mean, people still play Pokemon. People still play Yu-Gi-Oh! I found out recently that there was at a game store by me that there was a Beyblade tournament. No idea. Super fun. But yeah, they were like, yeah, we had like 30, 40 people in here coming and battling tops. I'm like, that fucking rules, man.
I don't know Beyblade, but
it's an anime about spinning battle tops that contain the souls of monsters.
Battling tops definitely made me think like some kind of porn wrestling match.
Ooh, kind of, but with beasts involved, and also like
no
schoolyard games.
Yeah, no pornographic aspect whatsoever.
Also, that I mean, as little as you can get in an anime.
So an 8 out of 10.
It's like insect parts and fucking peanut butter.
Yeah,
like,
there's underage.
Even like the most PG animes contain super big tits. Like it's just that's
women. Often scantily clad, large breasts, age unclear.
Body of a 25-year-old, voice of an 11-year-old. It's confusing for everyone.
That's definitely confusing is a way to describe it. Zach, the Little Women podcast, the finale has been delayed.
Postponed a little bit because of sometimes to record a podcast where you have multiple parts, you have to be in the same room as people. Yeah. So that's become a problem recently. But it is coming out soon, the finale. It's got every episode up until then, if you haven't listened. Little Women, a modern audio drama. It's a podcast written and directed and produced by former guest on the show and current girlfriend of mine, Shannon Camp. I play the Theodore Lawrence part, Laurie, who was Christian Bale and or Timothée Chalamet, depending on your preference of movie adaptation. Yeah, so give it a listen wherever you do the podcasts.
And I got to say, you do feel like the exact middle of the spectrum between Bale and Chalamet.
Oh, thank you. Right. Not as good. Like, they have their very specific thing that's, like, very good for Christian Bale, very good for Timothée Chalamet. Don't quite go so well together.
No,
but I'm in that middle. Yeah, you're either a battling top, like Batman, or, a little Timothée Chalamet, the ultimate twink.
That's my favorite superhero.
Yeah, I was going to say that's my favorite anime.
That too. Anime knows how to do
it. As for me, listeners, I'll plug again, like last time, donate blood if you can, because there's a major shortage right now.
A lot of charities. I mean, we mentioned our Patreon, which is obviously number one priority. But if you still have money after giving to us, there's a lot of charities that could probably use your help right now.
And I've heard that some of the stupid draconian restrictions against LGBTQ people giving blood have been relaxed. I'm not sure about details, but that is also like something to look into. And also Westward, the outlet I write for, is now accepting members because newspaper advertising is terrible. So if you want to support local independent media, check out westward.com. But that brings us to Judgment this episode.
Here's the thing about, I don't give a fuck about Sputnik. There was a dumb piece of metal that someone threw into space for no reason. And And for that reason, although I appreciated the scope and scale of the alternate history of the real history, but this is a case where the real history remains mostly the same regardless of the alternate, and B, as I mentioned before, who gives a fuck about Sputnik? Unless it's that breakfast bar in Denver, which I kind of do like. I don't give a fuck about Sputnik. So I'm going to go with the alternate history version where the Iron Giant was a real thing that happened.
It was caused directly by a Russian satellite. That's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Rachel, thank you for being here.
Of course. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. Zach, thank you as always.
Of course.
For everyone here at The Revisionists, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Have a good time. April 4th, 1818. Congress adopts the flag of the United States just in time for the annual World's Ugliest Flag contest. April 4th, 1850. Los Angeles is incorporated. Its first mayor is an earthquake in disguise. April 4th, 1460. The University of Basel is founded in Switzerland. Its mascot, the Not Fighting Irish.
Okay, I got a couple. April 4th, 1147. Moscow is mentioned for the first time in the historical record when it is named as a meeting place for two princes. One has diamonds in his pockets. That's some bread now. This one said he wants to buy you rockets. Ain't in his head now. Okay. April 4th, 1986. The maiden voyage into space by the Challenger. April 4th, 1973. Official dedicate. Let me restart.